The Russian TV stations and the newspapers, they know what they're supposed to say. And one of them, NTV, which used to be a solid station when I was in Moscow, actually broadcast an AI generated statement by a supposed Ukrainian official accepting responsibility. So we know exactly what Putin is going to do. He's going to use fair means and foul, even up to outright lies, to connect this terrible tragedy with Ukraine. First thing to note is that it took him at least 20 hours to respond to this terrible tragedy. He's normally quite quick off the mark, and he was obviously waiting for his security forces to come up with proof that there was a Ukrainian connection, which would support his war and indeed his plan to mobilize, to recruit many more Russians to fight in it. Well, they didn't come up with any solid information. So he said, well, they were heading towards Ukraine. In fact, they were much closer to Belarus, which of course is an ally of Russia, and indeed the Belarusians were put on alert to stop them coming. Anyway, none of that has been mentioned because it's all about blaming Ukraine, even if there isn't any information. So the Russian TV stations and the newspapers, they know what they're supposed to say. And one of them, NTV, which used to be a solid station when I was in Moscow, actually broadcast an AI generated statement by a supposed Ukrainian official accepting responsibility. So we know exactly what Putin is going to do. He's going to use fair means and foul, even up to outright lies, to connect this terrible tragedy with Ukraine.
We spoke to a Ukrainian MP earlier on in the show who was speaking to us about a missile that left Russia and flew over Polish airspace. It was there for just about a minute. What do you think about that, Alan? The fact that a missile's flying over Polish airspace uninterrupted. I can tell you that the Ukrainian MP thought that that was just simply encouraging Putin to take more chances and to push the envelope further when it comes to attacking Ukraine.
Well, I think the Ukrainian MP has a point. A Russian missile, it's not crossing half the earth, is it? It's not going great distance. There is no justification for it going over Polish territory. And if it did, they could say, oh, it was an accident. But they haven't said it's an accident. Clearly, there's a bit of sort of salami tactics going on, you know. Well, we'll fly over Poland for a few minutes, and then we'll see 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes, and you know, let's see how this all works out. It's all part of Putin's plan. He wants to be seen as a man who has no red lines. He wants to be seen as really scary. He may not be quite that scary, but he wants the West, particularly NATO states, to believe that there is nothing to stop him doing what he wants.
Alan, do you think this event is going to make Putin stronger? And I tell you why I asked this question, because a lot of criticism has come the fact that the Russian security forces didn't pick up on this attack, even though as far back as March the 7th, the US security forces warned their citizens and said that they passed on that information to the Russian security forces that such an attack from Islamist fundamentalists could happen in the coming months. A lot of people have also said that the emergency services didn't arrive on the scene quickly enough. One could think that an event like that for another ruler could be pretty catastrophic. And yet for Vladimir Putin, is he going to turn this around, do you think? Is he going to actually use this for further crackdowns on opposition, for, as we said, using it more as an excuse to go further and deeper into Ukraine? What's he going to do with this event?
Well, in a Western country, as we understand it, you would expect Putin to throw his security chief, Alexander Bortnikov, in charge of interior security, to throw him under the bus, so that to distract the blame from him. You might even think that a president might actually resign. Unlikely after he's just won, allegedly, almost 90% of the vote. But you have to bear in mind that Mr. Bortnikov, in charge of internal security, is 72, so 1 year older than Putin. They're all pretty aged. There's no justification for keeping them, but beyond loyalty. And I think his position is weakened by the fact that he used to be Mr. Security or even Comrade Security, but a lot of things have gone wrong. He doesn't really seem to have his feet on the ground. I mean, the start of the Ukrainian war was a disaster. There was that march towards Moscow by the mercenary leader, which really showed him out of control. And now they're one of the biggest concert halls in Moscow, a place where the Russian special services have actually trained dealing with a hostage situation. It seemed that the terrorists had no difficulty in bringing arms, weapons, and even lots of fuel to set the place on fire. So at best, he looks out of touch, as one person said after his address to the nation, an old man who didn't really know what to say. At best, he can be seen as out of touch. But there are plenty of conspiracy theories going around Moscow that actually it was all a put-up job by the Kremlin in order to pave the way for a vast mobilization of troops against Ukraine.
Alan, do you give credence to that? Because that was also repeated by my former guest, the Ukrainian MP. I mean, it's a lot of people throw these statements around, but could there be credence in that at all? Would Vladimir Putin be capable of doing that to his own people, in your view?
Um, I must admit, I'm with you there, Alex. I find it hard to believe in Moscow, with so many dead, that this was a plan. You know, if you wanted to, if there was a plan to stage some provocation to get the people on side, it could have been done on a much smaller level. You didn't have to have what's the final death toll going to be?
It's
More than
137 at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, probably more than 200. Obviously, the people around Putin are always keen to do what the boss wants, and indeed more than what the boss wants. But I find it hard to believe that this is the outcome that they were planning. But with Russia, anything is possible.